us. We're going to start in about 2 minutes. We're just waiting for a few other people to jump on. So enjoy a photo of Walnut Grove Farms that we will be touring today with Jeff and Bonna Heinzen. If you want to put in the chat feature, if you are a classroom, we would love to know what school you're from and where you're located at.
Jumped off the Wi-Fi.
Seeing that it's 11 o'clock, we can go ahead if you would like to introduce yourselves, and we will allow others in as soon as they arrive.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Diane and Kelly. My name is Bonna Heinzen, and I'm with the Cook County Farm Bureau, and we want to welcome everyone. I'm standing here with Jeff Heinzen in Kirkland. He is a third-generation dairy and grain farmer, and he and his family own Walnut Grove Farms. And Jeff, can you give us just a little history on the farm?
Sure. Yeah. Walnut Grove Farms is in Kirkland. We're third generation. It's my grandfather moved from Mundelein out here back in the 50s. His family farm became a golf course, so moved out here, and we've been farming here ever since. He raised 50 to 100 milking cows for all my dad's life growing up, and then kind of when the third generation came back to the farm after college, we expanded. We now milk close to 400 cows, and then crop as well. We grow corn, soybeans, wheat, both organic and conventional.
Wonderful. So Jeff, you brought up that you guys are a dairy farm. Do you happen to have any dairy animals hanging around here that you might be willing to show everybody?
Yeah, just because we're fine. We got two of our little guys here in the shop. If you want to...
So we're gonna walk. And this uncooperative young lady, she is a little brown Swiss calf. And then we also have this beautiful, very cooperative Holstein calf. So, Jeff, for the animals, and Kelly, I don't know if you want to know.
Yeah, so these guys, they're pretty big. We'll get them on screen here if we can. Let me know. Believe it or not, are only a couple days old. They're born pretty big. They're about 100 pounds when they're born. Their moms are 1,500 pounds, you know, when they're born, when they have the calves. So relative size, it's not a big deal.
So you brought up their moms. What are the life stages of these calves? I mean, how old are they when they first have a calf? You can see it on the photos. They're little huts. Why do you keep them in the little houses?
Yeah, so I guess to answer those questions, the mom has her first calf when she's about 24 months of age. She's bred to have a calf about 13 months of age. So she's almost full size at 24 months of age. So then they have the calf, and these are the newborn calves, and we keep them in these individual huts to keep them separate. I call them the cribs. I didn't realize how similar it was to humans until I had kids. So this is kind of their cribs we keep them in. Just like your kids at home, we keep them safer. We keep them away from other kids until they build up their immune system. And they live there, and we feed them fresh milk twice a day. And then as they get a little older, we give them a grain and molasses and oat supplement to kind of build their stomach up. Then they stay there for about 10 weeks in the crib phase, I'll call it, and then they move where they can get along better. They're very social animals. If you have them with too many animals, they actually get stressed out. So we have them in smaller groups, and we can keep a closer eye on them. And they'll stay in those groups for a couple months and eat a diet that's a little more dense, that would have corn and some of that molasses, so again as well. Just sugar. Kids love sugar. Yeah. And then they kind of become teenagers and go into bigger groups. And then they're raised up until they're about 1,000 pounds, about 13 months of age, and then they are bred to have a calf. And then they have a 9-month gestation, just like humans do. So in 9 months, they'll have a calf, and that's when they start producing milk. So we are a dairy farm, and that's the product that we provide to people is milk. So we milk them after they have a calf. Cows have to have a calf before they can give milk. And I think we'll have some information on the milking process here in just a little bit.
So we brought up the cows, and the calf who's on my left. Yeah, what type of cow is she or calf is she?
Yeah, so there's different breeds, different colors, as well as different qualities that they possess, as far as milk production primarily, but also how big they get and all that, just like people. So the black and white one is kind of the more common. It's the Holstein, and there's a lot of those. They produce a lot of milk, not quite as much butter. So if you're a farm that's servicing the fluid market more so, a lot of times you have Holsteins because you don't need as much fat and solids in the milk.
The fluid milk market, is that what I'm going to buy in gallons in my fridge, or is that the butter?
Yep. So the gallons in your fridge, or the little milk chugs, or at restaurants, any of that would be the fluid milk market. And they actually take a little bit of the fat out of the milk to get the 2%. So milk is naturally in that 3 to 4%. 3.5% for the Holstein, whereas brown Swiss over here, let me see here, or on the screen that I think was being shared, it was an Ayrshire. That's another breed that has more potent milk, I guess I'd call it. It has a little bit more fat and protein in it, so you can make cheeses, you can make butters.
And our Jerseys, I'm looking at them. What are Jerseys? I know they're very small animals, but does their milk, is it a fluid milk, or is that maybe ice cream milk?
It's kind of in between. I mean, all milk can go to any use. It's just better if it has a high fat content for the butters. But yeah, milk or fluid milk or ice cream be a Jersey. Jerseys are just efficient little buggers. They don't weigh as much. They don't eat as much. I mean, we have to feed. I think I can't tell you how much. I think that's a question later. But they eat a lot every day. So they're just efficient little buggers, and they make a lot of milk for what they eat.
Yeah. And I just saw Kate put in the chat. She said the Jerseys are sassy. Wouldn't you agree?
That too. Yeah. And the boys are sometimes mean.
Yep. Those Jerseys, they're the barns here. You guys predominantly did Holstein for a lot of years. So you'll see when we start talking about housing, they're built for those bigger cows. And I've been here before when you've had one of those little Jerseys escape and just walk around and join the group on the tour.
Yeah.
They're sassy little animals. So before we get to housing, we definitely want to talk about the milking parlor. But before you go into that, for those of you who are watching, if you want to take a guess, how long do you think it takes to get the milk to get from Jeff's farm to your table? And if you'll put that in the chat, and Jeff will tell us in a little bit. But let's take a look at the milking operation.
Yeah, I think, so the picture in the center is of our milking parlor, we call it. So there's one of our employees in there that actually applies the milker unit. So before they do that, the cows kind of walk in and turn. And you're looking at their rear ends, I guess, where the udder is. Yep, you can kind of see it there. So they walk in and they turn and they sit there and wait patiently. And then our employees go ahead and they prep the udder with a disinfectant that stays on there for 15 seconds or greater based on the kill time of the product that we use. And then we wipe that udder, make sure it's good and clean for putting that milker unit on, as well as to stimulate the cow. You can't make a cow give milk. It just doesn't work. You got to ask her pretty please. And we do that. So it's just like when a calf would do it in nature. We kind of clean the udder and it stimulates that cow to let down her milk. And then that unit goes on and it just has a gentle suck to it and a pulsation. And as that cow lets her milk out, it takes it into that claw that she's putting on. So there's 4 parts that go on the 4 teats. And then it goes through those hoses you see to stainless steel tubing, then to a pump, and then pumps through there through a cooler that actually uses well water. for energy efficiency and less electric use. So we can actually take well water that's naturally in the 50-degree range, and then it goes on the opposite sides of the plate to cool that milk down. So we don't have to use electricity to do it. And then it goes into a bulk tank that holds it until the semi can come and take it to the milk plant.
Yep. So in the pictures on your screen, I see, Kelly, can you flip back one? The pictures that were, on the screen, those are different types of milking, or
Yeah,
can you talk about them a little bit?
There's different arrangements that help the cows come in and turn. And that's just a different way of the cows coming in than the other ones on the left. Stanchion Barn is what I grew up doing when I was pretty young. Yep. So the cow, you bring in like 50 cows at a time, and then you lock them up by hand and move the milker units to each of the cows. And then the milk would still go in a line to a tank. And then the bottom one is kind of a carousel barn or a rotary. It's a lot like the merry-go-round at the carnival. Just the cows walk in, and they just keep spinning around. The milk, somebody attaches the unit, and as they go around, they get milked. And before they get to the other end, the milker unit comes off. Most of the time, that's computerized. We don't want to milk them too long, because that sucking will hurt if there's no milk coming. As long as the milk coming, it doesn't hurt. It senses that flow drops and pulls the unit off.
So what you have in your milking parlor, is there technology beyond it? I mean, do we have to milk cows by hand, or are there robotic milkers now?
There are robotic milkers, and they're becoming more popular, especially in areas where labor is an issue.
Absolutely. So Jeff, the next screen has the milk tanker. So we asked everybody at the very beginning of when we started on the milking side, how long does the milk take to get from your farm to the processor and then to the individual's table? And Diane, do we have an idea from chat? I saw some answers coming in.
We have a few answers here. We have 74 hours. We have 10 days. And if anyone else would like to put a quick chat in now, we would love to know how long you think it takes to get from their farm to your table with the milk. Let's see if we get any more. In the meantime, while we're waiting for a few of those answers, we do have a question from Bobby in school in Chicago asking how many calves you have on your farm.
Yeah, so the different ages. So these little guys that you saw, there's probably about 70 of those on our farm that are in those huts that we call them, or cribs, basically, that we feed milk to every day, twice a day. And then they graduate from there, and there's to the different stages. And there's probably about 400 on our farm.
Okay, thank you. Going back to our guesses, we have a lot of participants who guess a week, that it takes a week to get the milk to us, and about 48 hours. So how long does it take?
Well, that 48 hours was right on. So fluid milk, when it goes into the jug or into the school milk programs, 48 hours is a good time. The industry does a really good job of taking milk from our farm and getting it straight to the milk plant. I mean, that tanker, then the picture that you saw, it comes every day and it goes straight to the plant after it picks up on our farm and a couple others, and then goes straight to the plant and gets processed. And within 48 hours, it's into the fluid market. Obviously, cheeses and all that take longer. That's a couple months to get those products made.
So where did your milk go? Once it leaves your farm, where is it going?
We used to be the fluid market, being close to Chicagoland, but the industry has changed a little bit. A lot of that production's in Indiana now, and it comes from the south. So our milk now, over the last 2 years, has shifted to where it's going to cottage cheese, sour cream, and that kind of product.
And when the tanker leaves here, are they going to Huntley? Are they going to Rockford?
We used to go to the Huntley and head east with the milk, but now Rockford is where the plant is.
So Rockford is about 90 miles from Chicago?
Yep. Yeah.
So right out there. Now, one thing, and I want to touch on COVID, but before we touch on COVID, we're talking about your milk and how long it takes. And there is the coolest little website that if you want to look, and it's even on those cartons at schools, you can look up your milk and find out where it was processed. So And this one is actually a coat off of milk that Diane had at her house. And this one was processed in Harvard at Dean's. So you can look that up and find out where your milk is from, including your school milk cartons. Now, on the school milk cartons, we're still in the midst of COVID. When COVID first started in March and April, we saw we couldn't get food. We couldn't get toilet paper and things like that. And I know people were concerned. How did that impact you, and what happened then?
Yeah, I mean, well, dairy farming is a 365, 24/7 deal. Cows need to be taken care of every day, be fed and taken care of, and as we would normally do because the cows needed us. But as far as the milk, there was a period there, a lot of milk got dumped. Unfortunately, the tanker would come to our farm, and there's one day the guy told us that 20 out of 24 loads they hauled that day got dumped. And that was because the industry couldn't adapt quite as fast as it should, so they package it in big 5-gallon buckets for restaurants and such. And once the restaurants shut down, not too many people were going to go to the store and buy a 5-gallon bucket and put it in their fridge. So they really just couldn't package the products in the way that the industry changed so fast. And then that hurt as far as not having food, and financially it hurt as well.
Absolutely. And with the school market, I mean, the number that we had up that we just looked at, that was off of a carton that's packaged for schools. And when the schools went home and everybody went virtual, that was another aspect of the market that had to change rather quickly.
We could make milk all the time, but they couldn't make enough gallon jugs.
Absolutely. So we want to go ahead and transition. We know that the milk leaves Jeff's farm once a day now.
Yep, every day at least.
And within 48 hours, it's on your table or in your refrigerator, or at the very least at the grocery store. Obviously, that does change with butters and cheeses and ice cream, but your fluid milk is that quick. Let's talk about where we keep these animals and touch on housing.
Yeah, I think some pictures. So you saw, different stages of their life, they have different things. You saw the huts, and then different loose housing as they grow up. And then this is our facility where we have the mama cows, the lactating cows that are given milk. And this is called a Freestall Barn. You can see in the center, there's their food that we deliver to them a couple times a day. And then we actually push it up. They like pushing it away. So we push it back so they can eat on it. So there's food available 24/7 to them. And then kind of behind where they eat there, is free stalls, and it's just kind of, I guess I akin them to parking stalls. And we bed them with sand. Cows are, you can tell they're pretty big and heavy. They're 1,500 pounds. So they like laying on the beach. The sand kind of conforms to their body. So they get into those stalls and lay on that sand.
So, and I'm looking at the food in front of them. Mm-hmm. I assume that within the industry, there's kind of a standard. And I thought at one point it was each animal had access to 2.5 feet of food. Would that be the case, or? Yeah,
there's a lot of information. I went to college for a reason, I guess, that people have studied cows and everything and understand them. So we designed our barn. When we built that barn, we designed it so that there was plenty of feed line for them. So each of them have 2 to 2.5 foot, depending on the size of the animal, that they can go access food all the time. They have a certain amount of water space available to each one of them. I don't remember that off the top of my head. But each one of them has a stall to lay in, and then they have the access to food and water. Okay. But they don't have to worry about it.
Diane, before he dives a little bit further into housing, do we have any questions coming in on the chat regarding housing?
We do not have any as of right now, but maybe could you also talk a little bit about some of the jobs that some of our students might explore if they were interested in going into the dairy industry? You're giving us great examples of what you do, but I'm thinking, are there other jobs, if they didn't work on a farm, that students might take in school classes, or jobs that they could do related to your industry?
Yeah. So obviously we're on the farm, we're producing milk every day, but agriculture is very science-based. So pay attention in science. Remember your periodic tables, remember your chemistry and all that, because I've been telling my daughter that lately. Because I mean, once it leaves our plant, our farm, it goes to the milk plant, we call it. They do a very good job of understanding refrigeration, understanding keeping the food fresh, understanding chemicals to clean the lines in between batches and all that. So there's a lot of jobs in relationship to that on the chemistry side. Our milk gets tested every day. Every load that leaves our farm gets tested for not only the protein, fat, and content in it, but also if there's any antibiotics. So we use antibiotics on our farm if our animals get sick. Just like if our kids get sick, we take them to the doctor. If our animals get sick, we consult the vet and we give them antibiotics to help them. So we do a good job of keeping those animals completely separate, so none of that ever enters the food chain. But there's another safety check that the plants, they test every load for any antibiotic residue, so there's no chance that any antibiotics can make it into the food chain. And then once it goes past that, the culinary side and making new uses for milk products and all food products that we make in agriculture is a great job, and making new innovative ways for people to be able to eat them.
Absolutely. And I think on the cattle side, I mean, there's always research being done on genetics, looking into different traits, different aspects of the different breeds to the table. So there's always the genetic side, there's the veterinary side, these little
feed side as well. I mean, on the other side of us, we're kind of in the middle, I guess. We produce the food, and then it goes to the store. But in between us or before us, I guess there's the genetic side, research in genetics, research and best practices on how to take care of our animals, what kind of nutrients our animals need. I mean, our cows eat way better than we do at home. We know exactly how much they need of all the nutrients, fiber, starch, all that.
Thank you. We do have a question here also as far as, one comment, Ms. McMahon shared with us that the other area of occupations would be the research field in animal welfare, which is an excellent concept. We also have a question about how many hours a day do you work from Bridget?
Well, that varies. This time, I guess we're starting to slow down now, so we can probably work only an 8-10 hour day, I guess. But last week it was probably 14, 15, I guess.
Okay. And how many times do you milk the cows per day? Asks Bobby in school.
Yeah, so on our farm, we milk them twice a day. There's other farms that they do milk them 3 times a day. It's kind of different by the farm. I guess they want to get milked, I guess is what they produce milk, and it gets heavy down there, so they want to get milked, so we want to make sure to milk them twice a day.
And the last chat right now is, how often are your cows able to roam in the field?
Yep. So there's different, I guess, parts of their life. So during the actual milking part, they stay in that freestall portion primarily, and then they can have quick, easy access to the parlor. Way I put it is they work 2 hours a day. So each group will kind of walk to the parlor in the morning, and it'll take them an hour for that entire group to get milked, and then go back and then work another hour at the end of the day and get milked. During the dry period and when they're calves, then they have more access to freer environments.
And you brought up just them being installed in the freestall. Is that just a management, or does it make it easier guys to monitor?
More control, so we can see them eat.
Anna, you're cutting out a bit.
Every day. And also, if they were out in the field during that milking time, there's times of the year.
Diane, are we back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay. So Jeff was just explaining, and I apologize for that. We have a lot of devices on the Wi-Fi. You've seen the tractors go by and everything, and their GPSs are on the Wi-Fi, so they know exactly where they're at in the fields and where they've applied and everything. Jeff was talking about the freestall and about our environment and everything and why.
So we can keep a better eye on them, keep them healthy, and have access to the milking parlor, as well as keep them cleaner, so we can produce a better food product during that lactation period. So they'll lactate, I guess it'd be give milk for probably around 9-10 months out of the year. And then every year on our farm, a cow has a calf. So she kind of gives milk for that 9 to 10 month period. And then she goes in what we call the dry period, where they're not actually milking and they're just making that new calf inside of them. And then they go to a different barn, different fields.
So, and I just saw a question pop up about the feed, and that is, and what the cows are eating in the freestall. And that's a great transition for us to take a look at the feed. And before Jeff really jumps into it, for those of you who feel like it, how many pounds do you think an average milking cow eats a day? Put it into the chat, and hopefully Jeff can answer that.
So we definitely won't start with that then. So pictured here is the mixing bowl, I call it. So just like at home, you would have a mixer to make a cake or anything in your kitchen. This is our mixing bowl. It's just really, really big. And takes a big 200 horse tractor to run it. So we add our ingredients to that. There's a scale on that. So our person doing the mixing can know exactly how much of each ingredient. So just think of you in your kitchen, and that's sort of kind of the way we do it. Here is, I don't know if you can turn the screen on so we can show the actual feeds. So here is the actual feed that our cows eat every day, and we call that a TMR, or total mixed ration.
And this was the feed for the classroom who asked about cows in the housing video. This is it. I love it. Has, I'm going to call it a vinegary smell. And it's full of moisture. But Jeff, what's in that?
Yeah, I guess first about the vinegary smell, or the fermented smell. If you think about it, we'd have to have a really, really big refrigerator to keep food for all of our cows. And we can't have it. And that wouldn't be very energy efficient. So we use more of a pickling process. So a lot of the feeds that we have get put into a pile or into a bag, and then sealed up, just like you would make pickles or something like that. And that's that aroma that Vanna talks about that I love too. Yeah. So we'll talk about all the ingredients in this. So we work with a nutritionist, and we design a diet that meets our cows' needs. They're producing milk. It takes a lot of energy to do that. And there's different things. Just like at home, you follow my plate or some sort of nutritional guidelines, or you eat at home. We have that probably way better for cows, to be honest with you. We know down to how much fiber they need, how much energy they need in starch, how much they need as fat, how much they need as minerals, nutrients. So we'll talk about the ingredients here. So this is our primary ingredient. This is corn silage. So a lot of students might be, or people might be familiar with the corn plant. Yep, there's a picture of the ear of a plant. So what we do is, before it turns brown, like is shown in the picture, it'll still be green and growing really good. We actually will go ahead and chop that entire plant up. It's kind of like a corn chop salad. And that makes up the majority of what the cows eat every day. And they'll eat about 50 pounds of that just in their diet every day. It's very, it has a lot of energy because of the corn in it, and it also has the fiber of that, or salad portion of the plant.
So after corn silage, what's your next ingredient?
So next ingredient that corn we grow on our farm. We have fields that we chop and produce that. So it's the best nutrients for our cows. And then the next would be alfalfa. Actually, would be alfalfa. And I kind of relate this to kale. I don't like eating kale, but it's good for you. The cows actually do like eating the alfalfa. So this is alfalfa. It only grows about 1 foot tall. And then we'll we'll mow that down, and then bale it into longer pieces like this and chop it. And then this is fermented as well. We get it cut down and wrapped up as fast as we can to keep those nutrients in, and then it ferments.
And I saw one of the individuals in the chat box that she has her horse or horses at Hopping Farms in Lamont, one of our Farm Bureau board members and one of our local businesses. And horse hay.
It's very similar. We are more running, well, horses run, but run a marathon and produce milk. It takes a lot of energy. So it'd be more akin to a racehorse. The racehorses need lots of energy. So that's why we use a high energy thing like alfalfa.
Excellent. What is your next ingredient?
So the next ingredient I think we'll talk about is corn that we produce on our farm as well. So in addition to chopping the entire plant up, we actually just take the ears. So, and they'd be the kernels, just like if you ate sweet corn and you mow the kernels off the sweet corn. It's the same kernel. Now we use a different variety of corn than sweet corn. It makes a little bit bigger ear and it makes more starch than sugar. And that's better for our cattle. And we grind that up into a powder like that, hopefully you can see, so that the cows can get good use of it and don't have to chew all the kernels up.
Why do you grind it? Why don't you just take it off the ear and call it good?
Yeah, so they won't get as much use out of it. That's a lot of chewing. Because they probably, I mean, I guess we had 50 pounds of silage, and then we probably had 15 pounds of the haylage, and then, you know, we probably have another 2 or 3, actually more like 5 or 6 pounds of corn. So that's a lot of chewing. So we do that, kind of do it for them.
Per cow?
Per cow. So we're kind of adding up here, I guess. I'm not sure my math's going to work out perfect, but
So
giving you hints.
after the cracked corn, or what is the next ingredient?
So we'll talk about corn gluten feed is what we call it. And this is what's left over after we make sweeteners that are going to a lot of food products. And then so they take the more of the starch portion out of it and use that to make sweeteners for the food industry. And then this is the hull or the fibrous part of the corn plant that cows do a really good digesting.
What I'm always amazed by with the corn gluten is how wet it is. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but I have a little bit, I pinched a little bit of the corn gluten out of the bag. I have it in my hand, and you can mold it and push it around and everything. It is just the coolest little product.
Yeah, the cows love it. They like eating it. I mean, it's just like you and I. You wouldn't want to eat something just a bunch of dry. So we kind of try to get moisture in there and make it real palatable, so they like eating it.
And your ingredient after corn gluten?
We'll talk about, I guess, soybean meal. So one of the crops we grow on our farm is soybeans. And they're a little shorter plant, about waist high. And they produce a high protein product. So soybeans are very high in protein, 40% protein on the plant. So then we take the soybeans on our farm. Yeah, you can see the picture of them in the field there on the left. So we'll harvest those with our combine, which is actually behind us. I don't know if you can turn the screen on to the farm here, but it's sitting behind me, and we'll harvest those with our combine. And then we'll take them to an elevator. And then from that elevator, they go to a processing plant where the oil is taken out of those soybeans. So our cows don't need quite as much oil. Our cows only eat about a 4.5% fat diet. That seems to be what works good for their rumens and how they eat. And then so that fat is used in cooking oil that goes to the food industry and used for lots of things for human consumption. And then the protein part of that is ground up and brought back to the farm to balance their diet, and we can give them an extra protein boost. It's kind of like a protein shake for you and I. Good way to boost protein in our diet, and it's pretty dense. So this is the combine behind us. You can see the auger folded out. So the crop, there's actually a header that goes on the front that's usually 30 to 40 feet wide that obviously we have to take off in order to take down the road or bring in the shop like we did here today. And that'll bring the crop through the front. And it separates the seeds from the rest of the plant, the husks and the stems. And the stems and husks go back out on the back to go on our ground kind of as a mulch. And then the grain goes up to the top of the tank and then out through that auger into the trucks.
And I have to do a pitch. In October, we actually had the opportunity to do a virtual combine ride. And if you weren't able to join us for that lunch and learn, it is available on our website, www.cookcfb.org. We have the video, and we also were up in the cab and able to look down onto the corn going in through the head and everything. But check out our virtual combine ride if you want to virtually ride in a combine. Now, Jeff, I have one more ingredient in front of me, and it's different.
Yeah, this is our vitamin mineral mix, and it's basically just a bunch of little pellets. I mean, think about your vitamin that you take, may or may not take at home. I know I don't do the best at taking it every day, but we balance the diet. We actually send all of our feeds in for analysis, so we know what's in them, for fibers, energy, starch, fat, and then down to all the elements that you're learning about in school. And so that comes down to, another job. That there's nutritionists that work with us and have computer programs to get down and balance how much vitamin E a cow needs, how much selenium a cow needs, how much zinc, and then anything we don't feel is quite enough in our feeds that we produce, we have a custom vitamin mineral packet made up, and that's those pellets you see.
So with your feed, do you test them to know what kind of nutrients they have in them, or?
Yeah, everything gets tested on a fairly routine basis. This time of year when we have we just had harvest. So we just chopped up that corn crop and put it in a pile to keep. So we'll do more testing so we know exactly what we got.
Excellent.
I have a question
Now we
here,
asked the
Donna.
question at the beginning.
We have a question. How much milk does one cow produce a day? And the students are guessing 60 pounds.
60 pounds. Okay. You're not too far off. So we hope our cows produce more than that. I would say nationwide average is right around that 60 pound mark. We like to see, and that's 70 to 80. Pound mark is more weight to more like. Was there any question?
And earlier we asked a question, and Diane, what does our chat look like for the guesses on how much an average cow eats?
How much an average cow eats is we have 120 pounds, 110 pounds, 90 to 100.
Well, you guys are good. You guys are good. Yeah, so they'll eat in that 100 to 120 pounds per day. Each cow.
Can I ask also, we have a question here from students, what happens if the cows get too old, and are they still producing milk, and what happens to the cows?
Yep, so we like cows to stay on our farm as long as possible. We take the best care of them so that they can make milk for as many years as they can, but we can't keep them around forever. So once they aren't able to give milk anymore, then they go to the meat supply chain, and they'll go into hamburgers. Not necessarily steaks. That's more from the beef side of the industry. So, yeah, hamburgers and the meat that you would eat at the grocery store.
Okay, thank you. Another question we have would be, do you have any goats that you use for dairy or milk on your farm?
We do not. So you can imagine the size. Bonnet was saying about how when we had a 1,500 pound cow and then a little Jersey that was only 1,000, we had it getting out just because our feed rail is set so those bigger cows can eat comfortably. If we had little 40-pound goats, man, they'd just be all over. So it takes a lot of different facilities and milking equipment to milk goats. So on our farm, we don't, but there's other neighboring farms that we know that do milk goats and do all the same things we do with our cows to their goats, for their goats, and provide a diet and then milk them very, very similar to the cows.
Okay, very good. I don't want to put someone on the spot, but I see a teacher on here, Miss McMahon. I wondered if you could unmute yourself and just tell us a little bit about what your school has, because it's kind of unique, as well as a little bit about your background, because I believe you also have dairy education in your background.
Yeah, definitely. So I went down to the University of Illinois and I majored in animal science with a concentration in technology and management. But the majority of my professional career has been spent in dairy cattle nutrition and behavior research. So I worked with companies such as Lallemand, Diamond V, doing everything from transition diets, meaning when a cow comes out of her dry cow period and starts to transition into that lactation. So we focused a lot of my career in that short time frame in terms of nutritional requirements. And we even did a calving blind study, which was able to give cows a chance to remove themselves from the herd to have an easier calving, because in the wild, cows normally would remove themselves from the herd to give birth. So I got to work alongside a couple PhD students from like Ohio State and all that fun stuff. But yeah, that's a little bit about my background. But here at Ag, we have this really cool cow. Her name is Tallulah. She's a Holstein. She's 4 years old, 4 or 5. And she has this really cool thing called a cannulae. She is cannulated. So basically what that means is, usually in research, whenever we're conducting any type of nutrition research trials, we always want to make sure that the microbes in the rumen are doing really well, especially during trial periods. So a lot of times that means we have to take little samples from her stomach. And the easiest way of doing that is to give us a little opening right into her rumen. And the rumen is one of 4 compartments that is like massive. It's really big. It's it's along her entire side. And basically we kind of call it, it's like when you get your ears pierced for the cows, and we're able to take the plug out and we can reach in and you can feel all around all of her tummy full of feed. And you can, it's a really cool thing to do, especially for students, if you're learning about the anatomy of the dairy cow's really cool stomach and all the different compartments.
Thank you. Very interesting. And we do have another question here from Miss Rumsey's class. They wanted to know, if baby calves are not with their mom, how do they get their milk?
Yep, so we provide that milk to them. So first off, when a baby calf's born, we make sure they get what's called colostrum. So when they're first born, the mom will produce colostrum, which is just packed with antibodies and all the things that need to get that baby calf's immune system going. So we do a very good job of making sure that every single calf gets high quality colostrum within the first 6 hours after they're born, and usually way quicker than that. And then every day we go ahead and we provide milk to them. When they're very young, we stick a bottle just like you would do a baby, and they suckle out of that bottle. And then as they grow up, then it'll go into a bucket, just because they drink so much. And then they'll drink it out of that and then kind of transition to solid feed.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that is all that we have in our chat right now. So it looks like it's time almost. It's 11:40. So I know we said to the students it would be about a half an hour. Any closing thoughts that you have?
So Jeff, I just want to thank you for taking time. We hope to be able to continue doing these virtual programs, but when we have the opportunity to have everybody back in person, please join us out at a farm, get to know your local farmers, and come visit our calves. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And we'll just share at the last 2 slides, Kelly will share how to reach us. If you would like more information, either about agriculture in the classroom and school resources, you can contact me, Diane, at Ag in the Classroom. And then if you want more information from legislators or consumers, Bonna will be glad to also respond to you, and her email is up there as well.
Thank you.